Yes, yes. All right, we are ready to go. How you doing, ladies and gentlemen? I'm your host, Xander. Welcome to This and That, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And today is typically our members only Sunday night show. Uh, Typically, we go live 9 Eastern, 8 Central, 5 Pacific, 7 days a week, 7 nights a week. I understand that we've got a nice football game going on right now. So uh, if you're fans of the one that's winning, hoorah. If you are fans of the one that's not, well, oops. uh, Today we're going to have us an interesting conversation. We're going to be trying to talk about. I'm actually going to dig into a little bit of philosophy on you guys today, and one of the reasons why I'm going to dig into a little bit of the philosophy because I was going to go through some members Q's and A's, but then I thought about it. We're actually in the second quarter of the game, so the game might end when the podcast ends. You know, probably not going to get as many followers today as we normally do. That's okay though. I'm not concerned, but I actually thought that it would be a good idea for us to dig into some trains of thought. So while I appreciate you guys diving in here on TikTok, I just want y'all to know that if y'all want to jump onto the screen and put your 2 cents in on some of our topics, you can invite. We've got that going on right now. And then the rest of you that are on Twitch and Twitter and YouTube, if you guys want to get in on some of this philosophy, we can go ahead and click that link in the comment section. And if you click that link in the comment section and approve the mic and approve the camera, it'll bring you up onto our StreamYard green room where we then confirm that you're over the age of 18 because this is an adult platform. And then you'll be able to jump up here. You can turn off your camera after the fact and we can shoot the breeze on this topic. And yeah, let's see where this goes. So I had a fan that came back. He took our morals and ethics show to a whole new level. We were having a discussion in the comment section because I actually respond to all of my fans, at least until there's more fans than I have time to respond to them. I respond to all of the fans. So right now it's 100% of the fans. Later it might be like 20% of the fans, depending on how many people are commenting. Then at some point I'll just be picking out the ones with the best comments. But as it stands right now, I'm going in on it on pretty much everyone. So we had a situation about morals and ethics, and part of the show, me and Mr. Pips was going in on was determining whether or not an individual's belief of morals and ethics were linear, where the expectation of good and evil, right or wrong, plus or minus, was the same in every situation, or if it was more of a subjective scenario. Is a good person across the board, or is a good person subjectively good in certain situations and subjectively bad in others? And say the era of the show was a pretty long determination because I kept asking the guest on the show. I said, hey, if I give you 3 scenarios, all I'm doing is changing the valued item to another value item. The action is still the same. The outcome is still the same. Is it right or wrong, good or bad? And he was unable to answer the question specifically because he recognized that his morals and ethics were now compromised by the fact that his own personal bias was subjective to individual concepts. And that led to one of the fans coming up into the comment section on the show, which is why I tell you guys, if you ever have something that you want to say, make sure that you leave it in the comment section, either during a live or comment after the show. Comment into the feed, send me a message, whatever you want to do, drop into the DMs, however you want to do it, and give us some comments and opinions. And I read them all, I value them all, I respond to most of them, if not all of them, and then I get back at you. So the way it worked was the fan came in and the fan started talking about how the socially ascribed morals and ethics were uniformly moot, which means that the ability to determine right or wrong or good or bad was irrelevant to the situation. You just had to determine if it was beneficial to you, if it aided your agenda, if it was in its abstract form something that compromised your expectations. Now, on a social construct, you have situations where people will observe, uniformly speaking, that if I don't want negative things to happen to me, that I should not do negative things to other people in the same fashion. And that's probably the only uniform expectation. So it is deemed socially wrong because nobody wants it to happen to them. It's not necessarily actually wrong. And then it's not deemed socially right because it is actually right. It's just something that is deemed socially right because everybody would favor that particular behavior. Now, then I asked him a interesting question a few hours ago. Well, if you have are you able to, is what I asked him, are you able to have a uniformed set of values that are unwavered by the subjective bias of the societal norms? Like, are you capable of sticking to your expectations and your principles uniformly in every situation? And I was still waiting on the response from that, but that's a good question to ask. So I thought about it today and I said, well, maybe I should ask you guys, what do you think? If you had a specific principle where you say, well, no matter what happens, if it goes down like this, this is my response to that. Would you be able to stand on that on a uniform fashion? Would you be able to say that on everything in every situation that you would be able to stand on that same principle no matter what? And truth be told, when I had these questions with Mr. Pibbs, one of the fans on the show, it turned out that he could not actually stand on his principles in a uniform fashion because his principles were subjective. For example, we did a pretty long podcast. We were talking about good and evil, right and wrong. And on that podcast, I was asking him, whether or not taking a life was a good thing or a bad thing. Was it moral or ethical? He tried to go off of a Google search because that's what he does. He searches all of his answers. He doesn't have a uniformed opinion. So he searched the answer. And when he searched the answer, he's like, well, according to Google, it's good if it's not done with malice or leads to vengeance. And it's like, okay, so let's set up a scenario. Homeless guy, fly, and a cow. Nobody's coming for either one of these three. You're killing the cow, you're killing the fly, you're killing the person. Is one worse than the other? And he was like, yeah, well, if you kill the human, that's worse than killing the cow, and it's worse than killing the fly. And I kept trying to get him to explain, well, why is that? Well, somebody will miss the human. Not if nobody knows who he is. Nobody knows that he exists. So if nobody's going to miss him, what's the difference between him and the fly or the cow? Because you're killing the fly because the fly is annoying you, not because it's actually trying to harm you. So, what's the difference? And he kept trying to put in some type of fictitious value there. But truth be told, it was just his personal value in a human life was the only reason why he thought it was wrong or more wrong to take that life versus taking the life of a fly. Then when I said, well, what about the fly then? Because if a life is a life is a life, what about the fly? He said, well, the fly doesn't have his explanation was the fly was supposed to have some type of agenda. So now he's saying that he's stacking up a biased criteria to make the fly's life valuable or determine that the fly does not have a valuable life. Well, just because the life of the fly is not valuable to you doesn't mean that fly's life isn't valuable. It just means that it's not valuable to you. And, he tried to redirect the conversation and ask me sideways questions like, does it really matter? Would anybody even care? Well, if the homeless guy got killed and nobody would care, it doesn't matter. He couldn't answer that question either. He wants to lean to the fact that somebody would miss a guy that nobody knows is there. We compared a cow to a baby. He said, well, the value of a baby is more than the value of a cow. Well, why? He talks about the potential of the cow. Well, what about the potential of the fly? What about the potential of the cow? You talk about the potential of the baby. The baby could be something great in the future, but you value a life based on its years lived and its current contribution. If the child has a short lived life and no contribution, then it should be, based on your expectations, valued less than a cow that has been around for a number of years and has contributed to its environment extensively for its entire life or the majority of its life. So all of that led me to what we're talking about today. I seen doing some research, and I came across a story where in Hong Kong, women are angry at men. Yeah, I had to go there. And they're angry at men because if a woman is in distress, they expect the men to come and save them. The men are refusing to do so. Now, morals and ethics comes into play. Women say that it's morally and ethically right for a man to save a woman because a woman is a woman and a man is a man. It's a man's job. Now, the across the world, men are put into situations where it is their obligation to protect and or provide. But very few places in the world is it. I appreciate the likes. Thank you so much. Keep hitting that heart button as long as you like the show. Make sure that you like and subscribe. We're trying to get to at least 10,000 to get that stream key. But one of the things that I find irritating is that men do not have anywhere in the world, or very few places in the world, where women have the requirement to value and appreciate and respect men. So here's where the problem goes south. So the women feel like when they're in distress, that because the men in Hong Kong, they go to basic training, they have some type of military experience, they learn CPR, especially the young men, they're fresh in their knowledge of CPR. I know CPR too. So if I was over there in Hong Kong, they'd be expecting me to save one of them if one of them dropped to the ground in cardiac arrest or something to that effect. I'll pick up the phone and dial 119 or 112 or 911 or whatever the local emergency number is in that area and stand there and watch. Why would I not get involved? Men in Hong Kong say that they do not get involved with women in distress, especially when CPR is required, because the men are concerned that after they've saved a life, that the woman will sue them for sexual harassment. So, woman blacks out, wakes up, man is pushing on her chest and touching her lips with his mouth. He could be put in a world of trouble because he is touching her breast, doing the CPR, and touching her mouth. Sexual harassment. Now, I'm not trying to pay through the nose. Now, America's got some similar laws. Now, they have some good faith laws that protect you from litigation in America, but America's got some of the same laws where you have to get consent of the person in distress. And if you don't get consent from the person in distress, you could potentially be held liable for whatever you cause while you're engaging them, or whatever they accuse you of while you're engaging them. So it poses a question. Should men be putting themselves in danger financially to rescue a woman who will ultimately be ungrateful for the fact that she still lives to sue him? Is that right? I don't think it is. I think that if I could be wearing a $5,000 suit, if I stopped breathing and you had to rip open my suit so that you could administer CPR and you resuscitated me, then I just have to buy me another suit. I appreciate the fact that I still have breath in my body because you blew breath back into my body. But some people don't feel that way. Some people feel like, oh, you violated me because I was unconscious when you tried to save my life. Some people really just try to find ample opportunities to take legal action against other people so that they can get money, because in a civil suit, if all of the chips line up, then you are entitled to monetary compensation. Frivolous lawsuits are no longer really frivolous. They're more civil action. And if it makes sense, it will go to trial. And Hong Kong is one of those places where you can go to court for everything under the sun. So you really want to make sure that you think about what you're doing before you get out there and you go do it. So I try to ask people from across the world, because we are actually worldwide now. We've got, I see you, Red Void, jumping in from Romania. We got some people in here from all over the world. We got a couple of people from Vietnam and Russia and stuff to that effect. So really appreciate y'all coming. What is the morals and ethics behind this? By all means, throw some comments in the comment section. Request an invite, dive into the show, say what you got to say. In the meantime, I kind of want to tiptoe into that just a little bit further. We put ourselves in these positions as men, and a lot of the times, and we don't step back and we don't think about the logic behind our efforts. Most of the time, we go towards the self-sacrifice for a good cause. We assume that we will be appreciated and valued, but we forget that in 2024, honor is not a thing. You earn stripes, which is a fictitious form of honor. You earn that in the streets by doing stupid stuff with your homies and committing crimes and unjustly treating people. You will earn stripes in the streets. But as far as honor, respect, acclaim, you're not going to earn that in 2024. It is something that's given to you based on your status. It's going to be something based on your social media platform. It's not something that like you can help an old lady across the street and then your neighborhood calls you the one of the greats. You're not going to be able to build a homeless shelter for homeless people and people call you a saint. You're not going to be able to protect a Walmart that's under fire and people call you a soldier, call you a hero, something like that. It's not going to happen. Firefighters save lives every day, and some of them get traffic tickets and spit on. So, I mean, it's not like just because you do something good for a select few people that the rest of the country is going to respect you and value you and idolize you. So here's a question. Why is it as men do we put ourselves in a position to sacrifice ourselves for the sake of this acclaim, thinking that we're going to be appreciated and valued after we do it, and then turn around and end up being sued or mistreated or talked down to because we perform this action? Why is it that we instinctively try to get out there and play Captain Sable and try to reach out and rescue somebody who we don't necessarily know, outside of for the sole purpose of if we were in the situation where we needed rescuing, we would want somebody to intervene in our situation. Beyond that social construct that I'm doing for other people what I would hope people would do for me, what else are we doing this for? And in a society where we do not have mutual generosity is one-sided. Men are expected to give to women. The less fortunate are expected to give to the lesser fortunate. The fortunate or financially sound are only donating to charity as a tax write-off, and the charities are taking 92% of their donations and paying the employees. So only 7 or 8% of charitable donations, 7 cents on every dollar that you give, actually goes towards saving somebody's life in that charity. In most charities. So why do we put so much effort into trying to do a positive or what we would believe to be socially acceptable actions in a society that does not reciprocate? And what do you guys have to say about that? Bien, what do you think about it? Because to me, I find it confusing. And I think that somewhere around our middle ages, we reach a point. How you doing, Ram? We reach a point that we actually reconsider our position and we stop applying ourselves in a overly strenuous fashion, trying to play cat and save them. How you doing, Valuable King? Trying to play cat and save them in situations where we're not actually going to benefit from that effort. What you actually come from, it's more of a utilitarian perspective now. The philosophy behind the game is going to be becoming more of a utilitarian perspective. You're not actually going to go out there and do for the sake of just fundamental glory. Now we have to look at the sacrifices that we're making, weigh it against the resources we have to expel for this particular activity, and then we have to reassess exactly how well will we be able to make a positive impact on a situation without taking too much catastrophic loss on ourselves. And when we start weighing on a utilitarian fashion, is this good for me versus is it good for somebody else? You're going to come to find out more often than not that you're putting yourself in a very bad position, and it's probably not good for you. Some of us do it anyway, but those of us that recognize that things that aren't good for us, we probably shouldn't get ourselves involved in. Those are the ones that are going to stand there and watch and record it instead of intervening. I'll send you the video footage so that you got a copy of it. I'll testify in court, but I'm not going to actually get involved in saving you. I shake my head on that because situations like George Floyd, you know that anybody that was in the vicinity of that situation could have intervened, because resisting arrest can occur when unnecessary force is being utilized during the arrest, where the life of the suspect is in jeopardy by the arresting officers. So if you've got a cop standing on this guy's neck until the guy suffocates, you could have knocked that cop off of that guy. Yeah, you would have got handcuffed, but when you went to court and it's like, well, he was killing the man, and I got him off of the man, so the man is alive. So that's what I did. I got him off of the guy so that the guy could breathe. You would not go to jail for that. That not saying that the judge might not put you on probation or some shit like that, but they'll definitely be trying to flex on your sentence because you stopped somebody from being murdered by a police officer. We have in the United States, we have some very violent cops, and ethics do not come into play there. We have logic and reason, and then logic and which is not being done by the officer, it's being done by those of us that watch the situation after the fact. And our logic and reason comes from observing how shit shouldn't happen and then wondering why does it still happen. But you know that there is probably 5,000 police officers for every several million people that are being policed by those police officers. So whenever a situation occurs where an individual gets pulled over by a police officer, unless you have something really, really important to do, if you pulled over with him, that person is no longer alone. Now there are witnesses observing the situation, which reassesses the officer's ability to do his job effectively, because now without having to approach him, because keep in mind, you can approach a scene within 10 feet, but safe distance from the police officer's aggressive behavior is like 20 feet. So why is it that if we see somebody get pulled over, that we don't pull up 2 car lengths past the police officer's car, which puts us about 20 feet past the police officer, and then get out and record? Sit on the hood of the car to record. They can tell you whatever they want to tell you. Oh, get back in the car, this, that, and the third. Well, unfortunately, lawful order happens on a traffic stop. I'm not involved in a traffic stop. I'm a spectator of the traffic stop, and I'm more than 20 feet away from your vehicle, and your vehicle is 6 to 8 feet longer than his vehicle, which is about 15 feet behind his vehicle, which puts me technically 30 feet from your engagement with him, which means that I can record y'all from back here. I don't have to get back into my car, but that takes courage. Now, we don't have that type of courage to say that we can pass by a traffic stop and we get out and we try to observe that. You know, I seen it one time where a car got pulled over and 30 cars pulled over with him. I tell you what, that guy was safe. But we don't do that on a regular basis. So that brings me back to the topic of today. It's like, why is our actions and behaviors not uniform? We'll put ourselves in danger to pull somebody out of a burning car. We'll put ourselves in danger to pull somebody out of a burning building. We'll put ourselves in financial danger by resuscitating somebody, um, aiding somebody in a injury of some sort. But if we see somebody getting jumped by cops, we kind of just tend to stray away from that situation, you know. So that brought me back to when I was thinking about the people that were in Hong Kong, and they were saying, nope, I'm not getting involved across the board. If you need help, call 911, call 112, call somebody else. And I thought to myself, I was like, well, damn, that's that's harsh. But when you think about uniformity, when your train of thought is linear 100% of the time, where you're saying, if A happens, I will do B, even if B is C, D, E, F, or G. It's going to be the same response every time. Like back in the day, back in the 90s, if somebody stepped on your J's, you had to punch them in the face. Well, if you stood on principle, it didn't matter if it was a stranger. It didn't matter if it was your best friend. It could be your grandma. It could be your daughter. It could be your girlfriend. Principle is principle. If you're uniformly acting where there's no subjective, oh well, it's going to happen unless, you know, when you start throwing in that bias, that's when things stop becoming uniform. And one of the fundamental things that we talk about on this podcast is the uniformity when we're dealing with social interaction. And it really, different ways, different scenarios always boil down to the same thing, is that I'm not even talking about equality, because there are so many people that scream equality. They talk about how things should be quote unquote equal. There's no such thing as equal. And in a society that you cannot have equality in society, because no two people are valued the same. And that was the point that I had to get with Mr. Pibbs in that show that he was in. No two people are valued the same. No two lives are valued the same. You are valued based on your contribution. You're valued based on your access to resources. You're valued based on who you know. You're valued based off of who you're related to. You value based off of who you can get in contact with. You know, so because no two people are valued the same, my expectations cannot be weighed as valuable to you as your expectations. Your expectations cannot be weighed as valuable to me as my expectations. And that's when we start having a conflict of interest, because your values are going to clash with my values unless we find common values that don't clash, where we can ignore each other's differences and focus on each other's similarities and be able to coexist and cohabitate. So when I understood that, that's when we started drawing the question. We started drawing the question of, how do we determine from a uniform perspective? I appreciate the likes. Thank you very much. How do we determine from a uniform perspective when we should modify our values? And modifying our values is very important, because if we're modifying our values, we are adapting to the current environment that we're in. We're not just leaving ourselves to archaic expectations. Modifying our values gives us the opportunity and the ability to assess new situations and then stipulate and dictate a linear fashion for these new stipulations. Things are not always going to be the same, and there is no function that functions 100% of the time. There is no formula that can formulate 100% of the time. There's no philosophy that is effective 100% of the time. Only when that philosophy's theoretical construct is in play does it happen the same way every time. For example, uniformism dictates that if your outcome is supposed to be a certain outcome or supposed to be judged or gauged a certain way, then it's supposed to be that way every time. If killing is wrong, killing is always wrong, no matter who does it and no matter who gets killed. Does not change the fact that right and wrong is socially ascribed, which means that if the society decides that it's wrong, then it's wrong. And if society decides that it's right, then it's right. So you can kill for the military, but you can't kill if you're not in the military. You can kill if you're a police officer in certain situations, but you can't kill if you're a police officer in other situations, which also means that the value of life changes based on your authority, based on your job title, based on the situation that you're involved in. And that is when you have to reassess your values. Same thing with utilitarianism, the one that is useful more than the one that are not. They have the old saying, the sacrifice the few for the many, which is more of a utilitarian approach. If it's better if some people have to lose their life than it is for everyone involved in that scenario to lose their life. But if you came from a construct that every life is valuable, then no life should be okay to lose in comparison to any other level of lives. And then when you start thinking about that, which lives are going to be okay to be lost? And then you would be throwing away lives that you would have less value in versus lives that you have more value in. And those lives are going to be based off of how well you know them, how much you can get out of them, how beneficial they will be if they keep living. But that's not going to necessarily change the fact that a new life could do more for the future of the society than an older life, and a more profitable life could probably do more in the here and now than a non-profitable life. So all of these things make a lot of changes in our values and our constructs and our beliefs. So ladies, here's a question. And I ask this all the time because I ask y'all to make it make sense for me, and y'all have a really hard time of making it make sense for me. And I try to ask, if the feminist view of the world has been the same since the 1860s, and society has changed 100 times over in the past 200 years, women's liberation has changed, women's ability to have more authority outside of the household without ever having to relinquish the authority from inside the household, even though they have abandoned that part of femininity. Why is it that the expectations of men has never changed? Why is it that the values and the beliefs of what a man is supposed to be, of what a masculine man is supposed to be, has never changed? And outside of becoming more financially obligated to give away more money with no response or reciprocation from that. Why is it that we're in a position where women are expectedly turning this into a men work to fund women's existence type situation? It confuses me. It confuses me a lot. So we ask you guys, throw your comments in, Red Void. If you got any thoughts on this, make sure that you throw them in there as well. We wonder, why has your values not changed, ladies, over the past 150 years, beyond having more demand from the man? So while we think about those answers, while we're waiting on you guys to throw some comments in with relation to those answers, we look at some very interesting scenarios. We had the man that was getting arrested out of the passenger seat of the car because the police wanted his ID and he didn't want to give them the ID. Now, truth be told, I would have circumvented that situation by just telling them what my name was, give them first and last name and a date of birth, but I'm not going to give them an address. I'm not going to give them a phone number. I'm not going to give them an email because I'm required by law to identify myself. But if there are 9 million people with my name in this country, that's for you to figure out who I am. Right? Now, beyond that, I don't have to give you my identification card, but the man refused to identify himself outright. And that's kind of where The problem came in that because he was refusing to identify himself, and there are some states with laws that dictate that even the passenger is obligated to identify themselves, even if they are not operating the motor vehicle in a traffic stop. But the man was being arrested is seemingly unjustifiably. The man wanted his girlfriend to get out of the car and get a clear view recording what was going on. She refused to get out of the car. She just stayed in the car. She was just like teared up. He's going to jail. Brother went to jail by himself. Now, fact is, my ride or die is supposed to get out the car and be like going to jail with me. So I understand like her coming to bail me out after the fact, but I'm sitting over here thinking it's you can't see me going down for you because we got pulled over together. You were driving a car, we get pulled over, and now I'm going to jail. And they had the wrong guy. That's the funny part. They didn't know who the man was. They just arrested him on principle, talking about some he resembles the description of a wanted suspect. Didn't know what his name was, but just said, "Oh, you know, your name fits the description of a wanted suspect." Well, how? I never identified myself. But that's what happened. And when it happened, the lady, she just let it happen. I know I had me a ride or die chick once, and I'm gonna tell you, I can tell you the story. It goes way back, 20, 25 years ago. I got pulled over for stealing my own car out of my driveway. I walked home from work. I tell you, it was hilarious. I walked home from work, walked into my house, went into my bedroom, got the keys to my car, came out of my house, got into my car with my friend, started the car, drive down the street 2 blocks away from my house, got pulled over. They were trying to snatch me out of the car and take me to jail because I allegedly stole my own car. They even told me that I stole my own driver's license. And I'm like, how do you figure? So the girl in the passenger seat identified me. She's like, why are you arresting the man for stealing his own car? Like, oh, you can vouch for it? Well, yes. I was at his house waiting on him to get home from work. He put me in a car. He's taking me home. This is my ride. This is his car. He's my transportation back to my house, you know. And then they stole my cell phone, but they released me talking about some, let this be a warning. For what? What crime did I commit? But had I not had that person in the car with me that day, I had a ride or die that day. He was willing to go to bat for me. But had I not had that ride or die in the car with me that day, I would have went to jail for stealing my own car. I'd have been sitting in jail for grand theft auto of my own vehicle. That would have been irony because I would have been sitting in the courtroom and a judge would have been asking me, how do I plead? And my response would have been, how am I supposed to plead to being kidnapped out of my own vehicle and 2 blocks away from my house? How am I supposed to plead to that? And you got to understand I've been in this situation quite a few times. So when you see these people on social media where they're doing these really long claims, where they're making elaborate statements about, myself as the LLC representing this and and I don't conform to blah blah blah. Look, none of that matters. What matters is that they want you to say yes, I did it, or no, you didn't. And if you never answer the question, they can't proceed. They cannot answer the question for you. Because you tell them I don't understand what's going on, and you have to explain to me why I am in a situation that I'm in when I am not the person that has committed a crime. Because I was in there one time as a witness. I seen what happened, but you put me in jail because I saw it. Well, I saw everything that happened. I told them everything that I saw, and I went to jail for what I saw. So how am I supposed to plead to that? And I tell you, they asked me 3 or 4 times. They're like, well, are you pleading not guilty? I am not going to be able to answer that question anyway. How am I supposed to plead? I'm a witness. You have a witness in custody. So how is a witness supposed to plead? See, I never said I did it. I never said I didn't do it. I kept asking a question. How is a witness to the crime supposed to plead to the crime? What am I supposed to say? And I'm not asking my legal counsel, because my legal counsel will say not guilty. And that will start the wheels of a long drawn out prove yourself innocent situation. I'm saying, no, how am I supposed to plead in a situation where I saw what happened and I said what happened and I went to jail for what I saw? How am I supposed to plead to that? Likewise, in a situation with the car, it's like, well, how am I supposed to plead to being kidnapped out of my own car? I got arrested one time for it. Look, you're going to love this. I was riding a bicycle home from work one day. They came and got me off the bicycle, still in uniform. Talk to the judge. The judge is like, oh, well, how are you supposed to plead? They're charging you for this, and this. It was all kinds of ridiculous stuff. I said, well, they stole my bike and I'm still wearing my work uniform because they arrested me on my way home from work on a main street for stealing my bike and a bunch of other stuff that they charged me. Now, how am I supposed to plead to that? Because I have yet to see my house. I clocked out. Luckily, I've been off for the last couple of days. I'm supposed to go to work this afternoon. I haven't even had a chance to wash my uniform. I've been sitting in jail because I clocked out of work, and I went to jail because I was on my bike. My bike, not somebody else's bike, my bike. Registered to me and everything. And people don't go through the effort to register in their bicycle, but it was registered to me and it had my name on it and everything. And I tell you, these are the situations where they let you go. But we have noticed, and this was 25 years ago. These days, they putting shotguns in your mouth. I've had to stare down a barrel of a gun one time because my car broke down. And we ask ourselves, why do we go through this? That's because we as people have not stood on our values. We have not changed our values at all. We have not rethought our position at all. Most of us believe that when law enforcement is engaging people, they're engaging people because somebody did something wrong. Most of us believe that people who go to jail because they did something wrong. We do not understand that bad things happen to good people. We do not understand that bad people can do good things, but those bad people who do good things can equally be still doing bad things, and they're only being recognized for the good things that they do. Like y'all seen it on social media recently where the black guy got promoted to commissioner, and a month prior he was heavily harassed and arrested by a police officer off of racial bias. And this was before he was recognized as commissioner. He was arrested. Then they released him. And then after they released him, a month later, the commissioner recognized that man because they was giving him an award for being a great cop. During the award ceremony, the commissioner, which is now this guy's boss, calls him out in front of the entire department, points out how his behavior was unethical and he was a rogue cop and he was a disgrace to the badge and he did not deserve the award that he received that day. The guy couldn't do nothing but shake his head, but he really got embarrassed by that commissioner. And that was the only justice that commissioner could get at that time. But it was a principle of the fact that he recognized that you got to be careful how you treat people because you never know who's going to be there to bring you your last glass of water. You really got to, and that's one of the reasons why morals and ethics becomes a topic of discussion and values becomes a topic of discussion. But uniformity is also in a discussion that nobody really wants to talk about. Because when we hold in our social engagements with women uniformity, the way you expect us to get in there and play Captain Save 'em is the way that you're obligated to also get in there and play Captain Save 'em. The way those of us that end up in bad situations with law enforcement where we wish somebody was there to witness the situation and record it because our phone is dying is the same position where if you see somebody going through some shit that you're supposed to stop and record that shit and make sure that they're all right. Make sure that you capture it. Zoom in, get the camera angles. Let the cop be pissy. Let the cop be pissy because if they're pulled over and the cop is engaging you. Somebody sees the cop messing with somebody behind a cop car. They pull over. They're recording. Now you got 3 cars there. Do you see how this happens? When we get pulled over for a seatbelt ticket, it'll start with 1 cop car and end with 10. If civilians acted the same way, we see 1 guy pulled over, we pull over. You end up with 1 cop behind 1 guy and 10 cars behind that cop. Talking about some recording this shit. I want to see what's going on. I want to zoom in. We're all huddled up with one another. Like, what is this guy over here doing? You see 3 cop cars pull up. You should have 12 civilians pull up. Accountability. Accountability is only uniform if we are willing to take the same risks to hold other people accountable that we expect people to take for us to hold other people accountable on an equal platform. We have to hold people accountable for the same levels that we expect to be held accountable. So if you're doing what you're not supposed to do, the same way I'm supposed to get in trouble for that, if I would have did that, you're supposed to get in trouble for that when you do that. There should never be a situation where it is okay for me to do something that you are not allowed to do. If the law says that whoever is in this situation can do this, whoever's in that situation can do that. That's how the law works. There is no scenario where you yourself cannot do a certain thing that somebody else can do. Up until recently, because now certain cities and certain states in the United States, they say that men can't use women's bathrooms. Now, the law doesn't say that women can't use men's bathrooms. It just says that men can't use women's bathrooms. So if you go to a bathroom, a gas station or something to that effect, and the men's room is out of order, you've got to go somewhere else and use the bathroom. What? So if I've got to poop and there's only 1 bathroom available, I can't use that bathroom. I've got to go somewhere else and go find another bathroom. Now, I know that everybody doesn't have the same tan that I have, but I remember back in the day. Back in the day when I was young, I'm not a kid anymore, but check this out though. Back in the day, where if you had a really good tan, you had to go to a certain bathroom. If you didn't have a good tan, you had to go to another bathroom. So if the out of order was on the bathroom with the good tan, you had to go miles down the street to use the bathroom. That's where we headed at. I ain't never seen segregation happen amongst genders, but it's happening right now. And I'm sitting over here trying to figure out why. Because it doesn't keep you safe. The bathrooms are right on the other side of the wall of one another in most situations. They have his and hers right here. You just walk and either go this way or go that way. It doesn't. You have the door over here and a door over here. It's not like the men's room is over here and the women's room is on the other side of the property. That they're literally right next to one another. The difference is that if the man walks in over here and goes and takes a dump, he can go to jail for it now. Where's the logic behind that? Toilet to toilet. But understanding this, if you see the little circle with the triangle underneath it, go to the circle with the square underneath it. But logic dictates where's the uniformity. Where is the uniformity? Where is the balance? So I rambled on this all afternoon, so because I wanted to touch on like 8 different topics that are all kind of linearly related to one another. And the reason being is because, you know, people don't really want to hear this. And that's what today's show is about. Today is talking about the stuff that people don't really want to hear. We as men are held to a 12 trials of Hercules style expectations. And nothing over the past 200 years has done anything more than make our expectations as men get more strict. But no one is saying in this equality environment, in this egalitarian environment, no one is saying, what about the balance? What about the equality where the expectations are universal? Why do we not have universal expectations? So I bring this to you because, I got a lot of shows coming up in the next couple of weeks. We're going to be doing some things that's going to be improving the way that you balance out your time, the way that you organize your household, the way you can shop on a budget and maintain a well-fed, reasonably balanced diet for pennies on the dollar instead of spending $50 a plate or $25 a plate trying to get something to eat, or just forever going to fast food restaurants, grinding at the stone. The fact is that while I give you guys tips and tricks throughout the year on how to better yourselves and improve yourselves and lift yourselves up in a more effective fashion, I try to give you guys these philosophical frames of thought so that you can open your mind to another alternative. Because even when you're negotiating with your girlfriends and your wives, the negotiation comes from considering their point of view. You don't have to agree with it. You have to consider it. You have to analyze the situation from their perspective as well as your own. Prioritizing your situation as the man, because you're going to be the one making the most sacrifices. The women are going to give up their time, and some women are going to give up effort. But the men are going to give up time, effort, and resources. So we're both giving up time. We're both giving up effort, but I'm giving up resources. Since we're looking at that, we have to start thinking about the value of ethics, morals, reciprocation. And we have to start thinking about the difference between the expectations of men versus the expectations of others. And the reason why I say the expectations of others is because, one topic I haven't really touched on is the transgender thing. And I thought this was a very interesting topic because I heard somebody ask a question about it once before, and it actually made me have a light bulb. And the reason why it made me have a light bulb is because I do have archaic beliefs about gender. And my archaic beliefs are that whatever gender you are born as is whatever gender you are for the remainder of your life, regardless of how you look. But I also have a modernized expectation to represent you, or not represent you, but identify you as whatever you carry yourself as. Now, freely speaking, a man in a dress, I'm going to call a ma'am because it's a man in a dress. If you're carrying yourself as a woman, you're behaving as a woman, then I will identify you and address you as a woman. But are you a woman in my expectations? No, not a woman. But I can't respect you as a sir when you're not carrying yourself as a sir. So that's just a lack of respect, not necessarily saying, oh, you're free to call yourself whatever you want to call yourself. If you had male genitalia at birth, the law dictates that you are not supposed to use a female bathroom. So how do you go to the bathroom if you have male genitalia, but you identify as a woman? What bathroom do you go to? Because a dude in a dress in the men's room, or a chick in a suit in the women's room, if you look like a man in a woman's room, and you look like a woman in a man's room, but you have male genitalia or female genitalia, which bathroom do you go to? Do you see how values start getting screwed? Now, I understand that gender is decided at birth. But if gender is decided at birth, why is there more than two genders? There should only be two genders. If the gender is decided at birth, you're either a man at birth or you're not a man at birth. That's it. That's it. They say, well, what happens if you have both? Well, a man at birth is a man at birth. And if you're a half man at birth, you're still a man at birth. That's how that works. I know that some people are going to disagree with that. Some people are going to say, oh, that's, sexist and misogynistic and everything to that effect. And it's like, no. I look at gender the way I look at belly buttons. If it's an innie, it's a she. If it's an outie, it's a he. So if you make your outie an innie, can you hypothetically identify yourself as a she? I mean, more than likely, yes. But are you truly historically a she? No. So how does that work? How does that work? And then with the individuals that don't ascribe to anything, how does that work? How do those people go to the bathroom? You're not a he or a she. Which one do you walk into? Or is it universal? You can just walk into whichever one you want to. Or if 90% of the time you sit, you go in the women's room, and if 90% of the time you stand, you go in the men's room. Is that how that works? Make it make sense for me. Now, while we also talk about these values, while we also talk about the uniformity that makes absolutely no sense in our society, I came across a scenario. I laughed at it at first, but then I thought about it intuitively. So I was watching a situation where, these 10, 15 people line up and everybody's holding a balloon, because that seems to be a thing these days. And somebody walks into the room and people start popping balloons. Y'all seen that shit. Now, I don't know why the fuck they do this shit, but I guess social experiment turned into a trend. Now, female walks into the room. There's a line of men standing there. Some of the guys popped the balloon as soon as she walked out. One guy popped the balloon later on. After that, they started asking about the why'd you pop your balloon, this, that, and the other. And then I thought to myself intuitively, like, if I was standing there, would I have popped that balloon? Well, she had more bass in her voice than I did, so that probably would have caused me to pop the balloon. But I've known in my past some women that were highly attractive that just had very deep voices, that were legitimately women, but they just had really deep voices. So I thought about it, and I was like, it depends on how I was feeling that day. I might not pop that balloon. But I would have popped that balloon because she was wearing a t-shirt, she was wearing boxers, and she was wearing, if I remember correctly, some like Dickie shorts that were like hanging off of her behind, like a dude. And I was like, nah, that's not gonna work. That's not gonna work. And when I looked at it, she started telling me the story, not telling me, but she started telling the story. Like, she used to date a guy, then the guy did her bad, and the guy did her so bad that she, started dating chicks. And then after she dated chicks for a while, then she decided she wanted to go back and start dating guys. And I stopped and I thought about it. I was like, whoa, there's a whole bunch of red flags up here. Like, I would start popping other people's balloons for them. And then they, like, sitting here thinking to myself, like, this is a problem. Like, I got to save my homies. And the reason why it became a problem to me when I was thinking about it was, okay, again, I'm going to come from logic dictates. If you're a person, regardless of a man or a woman, you end up into a relationship. If you have a bad relationship, your relationship goes south because both of you made incorrect decisions during the relationship, not just one person. It might take one person to start the series of bad decisions, but the capitalization of bad decisions that follows by the other person is the reason why the situation got worse. One person can fuck up and it could be all right. Y'all could take turns fucking up one at a time and it could be all right. It could smooth over. But if I fuck up and then you fucked up because I fucked up, and then I fuck up because you fucked up, and then you fucked up because I fucked up, you're blaming me for what you did, I'm blaming you for what I did, but it ultimately boils down to the fact that we never worked out the first fuck up. We just kept capitalizing on fucking up the situation. And there are some situations where we start fucking each other over out of spite because I'm disappointed in what you did, so I'm going to do something to disappoint you. You're disappointed at what I did, so you're going to do something to disappoint me. We're intentionally disappointing one another, which boils down to the fact that we're both unhappy. Now, I say that to say this. She gets out of this really bad relationship. She blames the guy. Conflict avoidant. I say, okay, fine. He might have did something unacceptable by your standards, your expectations, like not give you money to pay your hair. But he could have did something really bad. But then I think about it. You did not recognize what you did wrong in your last relationship. Instead, you went and dated women, which I have no objection to. What I have an objection to is you dated women and then took over the masculine role while dating the women. Why do I object to this position? You, as the woman in the feminine position when you were dating the man, did not learn from the errors of your mistakes, because instead of you fixing what you did wrong with the man, you instead took over the male role and thought that because you were in charge that you could get a different result without changing your behavior or your thought process. Now, the other objection that I have is that because the situation failed when you were dating a female, where your relationship still fell apart, you're now trying to go back and date men, but you're going to date men with this understanding that you have a masculine position that you are going to maintain, and you do not have any intention of flexing on that you are going to have equal authority, if not more authority, than the man that you're about to get. Now you have two problems, three problems. Because the first problem is you failed at being a female the first time, you failed at being a male the second time, and you are failing because you're walking up to this new man thinking that you're going to be the man in a relationship with the man, and ain't no man gonna have that. Now, the other scenario rolls out. You didn't fix your psychological trauma from the man that you were with. You didn't fix your psychological trauma from the woman that you were with. You just felt like because it didn't go right, you're not taking responsibility from your actions. You're going to switch genders. Then you felt like because the situation didn't go the way you wanted it to go right, you switch genders again. You are not taking accountability for your involvement, because the common problem in all of your bad relationships is you. And if you don't fix you before you get involved with someone else, you are going to have the same failed relationship with the next person. And I'm not trying to be that next person. So this is going to be a common issue. You would have to fix you. You would have to fix your shortcomings. You would have to fix what contributions you had towards each one of your failed relationships. You have to recognize that you fucked up somewhere. Whether you did something you wasn't supposed to do or didn't do something that you was supposed to do, you fucked up somewhere. And when you recognize that, you learn from it, you adapt to it, you do better next time. And then next time, you are not going to have yourself in a compromising situation where you're performing the incorrect actions. But you also have to learn your partner. So while men figure it out, because women don't come with an owner's manual, men figure it out by learning what a woman wants, learning what a woman needs, and then trying to do those things for that woman. And then recognizing that no matter how many women he has dated in the past, a man does not have a predisposition or a predetermined expectation as to what he believes women want. What he knows is that if he meets this base level of criteria, some women will step up. The women that step up, he has to figure out what the fuck they're looking for. So just because I gave you a style of class that you're willing to sign up for, I have to take your RSVP and then find out what the fuck you want to eat. I can't just say, oh, I'm going to give you whatever, because that's not how it flies. Women believe that men should accept women the way women are, and women don't have to change for men, but men must change for women. So the question is, where is the logic in that? Because if you're not uniformly going to treat me the way you want me to treat you, why do you want me to uniformly treat you the way I want you to treat me? Because if you're treating me the way I want to be treated, then you will be treated the way you want to be treated. But if you expect me to make excuses for your incorrect, inappropriate, and unacceptable behavior so that you don't have the responsibility to be held accountable for the shit that I don't agree with, then why the fuck should I be flexing on my non-negotiable expectations for behavior to satisfy your desire to be lazy in this relationship? Because if you don't have to put in any effort, then you can linger around and reap the benefits of being involved. But if you've got to put in effort, there is no lingering involved. You will have to do, you will have to achieve, you will have to overcome. And then once you overcome, you will be able to receive everything that you are entitled to receive, because you are with me when it was hard. You are with me when it is easy. You were with me when I had nothing. You were with me when I have something. And now that I have something, you are entitled to it, because you wasn't just there with me. You wasn't on the side of the ropes just cheering. You were actually in there strategizing with me. You were taking blows with me. You were blocking shots with me. You were navigating with me. We went through the hard stuff. If I got hurt, you mended me back up so I could get back into the fight. You did stuff. So when I'm looking at this woman in this balloon popping situation, I was like, oh yeah, I would have popped everybody's balloon for them and be like, nah, I can't let my boys go down like that. Because if we're not willing to learn from our own mistakes, then how are we going to improve? If we're not willing to teach our brothers how to do better, we're not going to improve. They're not going to improve, but we're not going to improve. And why are we not going to improve? Do you know that you honestly know the ins and outs of anything that it is that you know when you are capable of teaching it to someone else? So when you have definitively gotten your shit together and you start effectively utilizing the knowledge that you have learned to keep your shit afloat, and not just keep your shit afloat, but elevate yourself to a new level, then you are able to teach other people what the fuck you did to come up. And if you're able to teach other people what you've done to come up, then that means you know what you are doing. So if you was once failing and you are no longer failing, and you know exactly how you got here, you should be able to show everybody around you what you did to get to where you are so that they can do it too. If they are not coming up with you, where you are watching people fail around you, then you don't know what you're really doing. You know that you know how to get up there. You know how to skip a rock and make it land in the water. But you don't know how you made that rock float. Because if you knew, you would show everybody else. Now, some people will say, oh, that's not business savvy because you're not supposed to give away trade secrets and this, that, and the third. If you have 100 trade secrets, the first 10 that you use to get in the door ain't gonna hurt you to show somebody else the introduction. It ain't gonna stop you from making it a success if you show somebody the first 10 to get in the door. Why? Because capitalist business only exists if there are people to capitalize on. If ain't nobody else involved but you, who do you capitalize off of? So in order for you to have people to capitalize off of, you have to have people try and fail so that you can succeed. Because in a deal where one person will win and one person will lose, in order for the person to win, a loser must be present. But there will be no loser present if nobody's encouraged to try. So you got to show them what they got to do. Show them the basics to get them in there to try. And they're going to learn from their failures, and you're capitalizing off of their failures. And then they're going to learn how to succeed. And what are they going to do? They're going to capitalize off of the next guy's failures. You're capitalizing off of the amateur moves that the novice is doing. They're capitalizing off of the amateur moves that the beginner is doing. This is capitalism. So if you know what you're doing, if you get your shit together, you know what you're doing, you've got a across the board linear situation. And I keep saying linear, and the reason why I say linear is because it's not logarithmic. It's not something that's just going to build itself straight up. It's something that's going to have a straight, slow, linear progression. Sometimes it might have a pretty steep linear progression, but it is on an incline. Hopefully, you don't want to be on a decline. You want to be on an incline, a straight line, preferably. And in those situations, you want to be able to recognize that that level of increased success is not negatively impacted by the changes in your environment. When you recognize this, then you're able to say, okay, well, this is what I did to get to where I am. Now, let me go get on somebody else and show them how I got there. Let me teach this person what I did to get to where I'm at. Let me go help this person get on top. Let me help that person to get on top. And if we did that, then we're going to be successful. They're going to be successful. They're going to be successful because of us. And guess what happens to us? We're now the teacher. We're now the mentor. We're now the master. They're going to talk about how they became successful because of their involvement with us. More people recommending us for our successful involvement, the more legacy we build. Well, if I'm taking people and I'm making them successes, then what's going to happen? More people are going to come to me and ask me to make them a success too. The faster I'm able to stick with one person and make that person a success, the more people that are going to come to me and say, hey, help me do the same thing. Enough people come to you saying, hey, help me do the same thing, you can actually start charging a fee for that. And that's what people do. That's what motivational speakers and seminar people do. They could get paid $20 a head for 200 people. Show up into a room. They just made $4,000 to tell 200 people for an hour and a half to get your shit together. And out of that 200 people, 20 people might do it. Doesn't matter though, because got paid to say it. Somebody else might get commission if you do it. I got paid to say it. That's one of the pluses and minuses about talking for a living. But the plus is that you do stuff, when you know what you're doing, you're able to confidently tell somebody, I know what I'm doing. I know what you need to do to get to where I am. And I'm going to start with you step by step. I'm going to show you the pitfalls that I went through so that you don't do them. I'm going to show you the positives that I went through so that you can apply those. And then you will jump, skip, and hop your way to a positive situation. By doing that, you will become a better you faster than what I became, because I had to learn from my mistakes in order to get to where I am. You are going to learn from my successes and avoid my mistakes to get to where you are, which is going to make you more successful faster. But your success, my success too. The whole scenario, I am the company that I keep. Well, if the only people that are around me are successful people, then I am a successful person, because I only associate myself with successful people. But I make sure that I am also successful, so that I am not the least successful person in my network, but I am also not the most successful person in my network. I told you this before. You want to be somewhere in the middle. You want to have people that you mentor to be better than you, but you want to have people that are better than you that you can learn from. Because if you know what you're doing, you can teach other people. But if you don't know what you're doing, you can get taught by other people. And the passing down of knowledge that used to be a thing that we used to do back in the day, now you have to buy that knowledge from the person who knows it and then sell that knowledge to the person who doesn't know it. Capitalism. But I already told you they're putting things into action right now for 2025, because they already know who's going to be running the country in 2025. And I'm telling you guys right now that if y'all don't start following my lead if y'all don't start listening to what I'm going to tell y'all, then y'all are going to be sitting over here in 2025 wondering what the fuck happened. And in 2025, I'm going to be preparing for 2026. And y'all are going to still be sitting there with your thumb in your ass talking about some what the fuck happened. 2025. Oh, shit, so hard. Because the tax season changing right now. 2024's tax season already going into effect. So 2025 is going to already be a thing. He's not going to become president and then put it into the effect for 2025, 2026 year. It's going into effect right now. So that come 2025, it will be a thing. So the only thing that we can do is deal with it. I know the man's telling y'all some shit about, oh, we're not going to charge you for overtime. Not going to tax you for overtime hours. He's lying. You're only paying 15%. You got taxed on overtime because your overtime hours put you in a higher tax bracket. You're now being charged 15% across the board. So the total quantity of money that you make for the year is going to be taxed 15% until you make $169,000. So it doesn't matter if you go in a time and a half or not, because you're going to be paying the same amount of taxes. Back in the day when we paid for overtime, when we went into overtime, we got taxed a higher tax bracket. So if you were making 15 or 20%, and then you got into overtime and your $15 an hour turned into $30 an hour, or your $18 an hour turned into to $30 an hour, you went into a different tax bracket, which meant that instead of you paying that 15 to 20%, now you're paying like 25 or 30%. And that meant that you had to work 5 hours of overtime before you could feel overtime pay on your paycheck. He's saying that you're not going to get taxed for time and a half. That's a lie. You're just not going to have an increase in taxes because of the standard 15%. They're going to take 15% out of your check across the board. So if it doesn't matter if you go into overtime or not, if you're getting paid $15 an hour for 40 hours a week and you do 60, you're going to get paid $15 an hour for 60 hours for first 40 hours a week, and then you're going to pay an extra $7 an hour for the remaining 20 hours a week. And if the total quantity of money is $800, you're just going to get taxed 15% on the whole $800. You're not going to get taxed 15% on the first $400 and then get taxed 25% on the second 20 hours like we used to get. You're only going to get taxed on the full amount. Because for him to tell you truthfully that you will only be taxed for 40 hours out of your work pay, you would have 20 plus hours of non-taxed income. The company still got to pay you. That ain't the truth. It's just offset. It's just offset. It's like telling you that if you buy this laptop, it's seemingly free. With the rebate, it's zero. It's a $2,000 laptop because of the $2,000 rebate. You still got to buy it $2,000 cash up front. I'll just mail you $2,000 on the back end. It's not free. You had to pay for it at some point. You know, the deal isn't I'll accept the laptop, you send in the money for the rebate and pay yourself. No, I have to buy the laptop and then you mail me the rebate. So likewise, when they tell you, oh, well, you know, taxes is not going to charge you overtime, they're lying to you. You're just not, it's not going to affect your pay anymore because you're not going to see that fluctuation on your check anymore. Come 2025, if you do 40 hours a week, you're going to see an extra $7 to $10 an hour on your paycheck, but you're not going to see an inflated taxes on those overtime hours because you're going to get a base 15 across the board. So he just made it he made a bold statement that will help him win. Because broke people go into overtime. Broke people work 2 jobs. And because broke people work 2 jobs and go into overtime, if you tell them that they're not going to have to pay overtime, they'll vote for you because they need more money in their pocket. But once he gets in the office and you got to pay for your own health care, more so than you used to, you're not going to have ready accessibility to food stamps. Your student loans are being cut. You're going to be hurting financially. But you pay 9% less taxes than what you did last year. but you have less deductions because in those states that charge city and state tax, you still got to do city and state tax. So if you don't understand that it's going to wash itself out to where the poor are still paying for the rich, and the rich don't have to pay for anything, you're going to be sitting there looking with your thumb in your ass, wondering what the fuck just happened. And the only thing I'm going to tell you is that I told you so. I told you that 2 months ago. I said that this is going to go south, and when it goes south, I'm going to tell you I told you so. As it goes south, I'm continuing to tell you I told you so. So that once it finally happens, I'm going to be like, well, not only did I tell you so, I just released some shorts on TikTok about it just last week, telling you so. So when we start boiling down the uniformity and the lack of uniformity and how people don't want to hear the things that I'm telling them about how the shit just doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. It is not what we really want to have happen. It's just what we allow to have happen because we never really think about this critically. We never conceptually analyze the situation and how it affects us negatively and how we can impact the change. And because of that, we put ourselves in a constrained situation that requires us to then accept the situation we cannot get ourselves out of. Once we put ourselves in a position that we cannot get ourselves out of, that is when we have to deal with the cards that were dealt to us, that we dealt to ourselves. And first person accountability dictates that you cannot blame the people around you for the situation that you're in because choices that you made and choices that you failed to make led to the situation that you are in. And I'm heartless and cruel about it because, as I said earlier in the show, when I was talking about how morals and ethics are not linear with uniformity, and since morals and ethics are subjective in scenarios where morals and ethics cannot be uniformly enforced, I'm looking at it like, look, bro, objectively analyzing the situation. If the shit wasn't bound to work out without certain actions being done, you can't sit back and blame somebody else because the actions wasn't done for you. I had somebody that I was teaching somebody's kid, and this was entertaining. And the reason why it was entertaining was because the kid comes up with excuses all the time about, why he doesn't do his homework. One time he said he didn't do his homework because he was trying to do his passport. Your dad does your passport. And your homework assignment was like 6 or 7 days late. It only takes 2 or 3 days to get your passport together. So why are you complaining about your passport? Why are you giving me stories about your passport? Your passport should have been accomplished. And then you still could have been able to do your homework. Nowadays, I'm getting stories like, oh, well, my mom didn't give it to me. Well, give me an email because you got an email. Give me your email. I'll email you the homework assignments. There's no excuse for you not doing your work because you are in the site right now. You should stay logged into the site. I say give it 20 minutes, download all your homework assignments, download your homework assignments. As a minor child, you have the opportunity to go to your parents and say, hey, my teacher said I was going to have homework. Did I get any homework? As the parents, you recognize that homework exists whenever it comes. Download the homework. And then when you download the homework, then you put it where the kid can get it. So when they show up, it's like the homework's already on your computer. Download it, email it to them. But if you're emailing them homework, give me their email. I will email the homework directly to them. So once they get out of class, once they get back to the house, you see me once a week. You've got 6 days to get it and 1 day to do it. And there's no excuse as to why you don't get the homework. There's no excuse. Just like when I told him, give me your email, he never gave me an email. So then when I see him today, he's going to give me an excuse as to why he didn't do the homework. His parent tells me, well, I was going to give him the homework, but when you gave it to me, he was in school. And then when he got out of school, he didn't have time to do it. And I explained to the parent, I said, look, I teach my students first person accountability. So I'm doing this from small. I'm doing this from 7, 8, 9, 12, 15 years old, first person accountability. I say, look, I don't care. I'm not fussing at you. It is not your responsibility as a parent to make sure that the child has the homework. It is the child's responsibility to make sure that they get the homework because it's their grade. If the kid fails, the kid cannot say that I failed because my parent didn't give me my homework assignment. If the kid fails because the kid doesn't do the work, the kid fails because the kid didn't do the work. If a situation happens where the kid fails an exam because the kid didn't practice and the kid doesn't understand what's going on, the kid failed because the kid didn't apply themselves. It is not the parents' fault that the kid fails. Parents are already paying for a tutor on top of the rest of the class. So you have two teachers now, and you still fail. Well, if that's the case, you're just not applying yourself. You have to take responsibility for yourself. And when I explained it to the parent, I said, look, no, they have the obligation to come to their parent and say, did you print something for me yet? Did you at least download it on a computer where I can see it? Because the first thing that happens every class is a teacher asks, did you do the homework? Did you have trouble with the homework? That's the first thing that is asked of you. And since that's the first thing that is asked of you, you know you've got class today. You know your teacher's going to ask you about this homework. You're not going to get past this homework. So that means that go do it. If you forgot to do it and you know you got to do it today, you might as well start doing it right now. You might as well sit there and start doing it until class starts, so that when class starts, you're actually working on the homework when class starts. That way, when your teacher says, hey, what's going on with the homework? I'm almost finished with it. This is the same thing that applies to work. This is the same thing that applies to relationships. First person accountability. You recognize what needs to be done. You start doing it without having to be told. And then you apply that on a regular basis. Before somebody can come and criticize you for what you're not doing, you would be able to get done as much stuff as possible so that when that person that criticizes you shows up, most of the stuff that could have gotten done would already be done. And the only things that still need to be done are the things that you have not had the time to do yet. So you've made strides in your accomplishments, which means that if the person that's nagging you really wants to see you succeed, he or she will get over there and help you finish instead of just bitching about it. Which brings us back to the partnership. So if we're in those relationships with those partners that are not capable of providing us with aid and support, we're not looking for, because they want financial support, we're looking for physical support. So if they're not interested in coming in and aiding us in our success, we're not interested in funding their existence. So we are able to utilize our resources to hire people to help us with the shit that we need done. You will come to find out, the larger this podcast gets, the more people you see on this podcast, you will come to find out, guest stars and everything that you're going to see on the show. And you will come to find out that, uniformly speaking, accountability is accountability is accountability. And I will catch just about every person that comes on this show with a subjective and linear observation, where they will be able to tell you that it is not uniform across the board. It is primarily subjective, but had it been uniform, then you would get the same outcome every time. So I asked one of the fans on the show before the show today, can you enforce uniformity in a subjective environment? And I'll let you know what he says. He hasn't responded to me yet, but we're passing comments back and forth in the comment section. So I asked the rest of you, can you enforce uniformity in a subjective environment? Since everybody else is going to judge your actions as they impact them, can you yourself stand on uniform behavior? Uniform to you behavior, not socially uniform behavior. Uniform to you, like you're going to do it the same way every time you're involved in this situation, regardless of how everybody else feels about it. Can you exist uniform behavior in a subjective environment? Now, I'm going to let you guys think about that as we tiptoe back on up out of here. But I want to thank you guys for coming to the show tonight, because these are some of the things that people really don't like to talk about. They don't like to hear these things. And then once they hear it, they typically try to run from the topic. And I kind of wanted to bring this across everybody's attention. I have some questions and comments that I'm going to be bringing to the show, but today I just really wanted to go over this. Oh, and by the way, I know that you're following up on me with the internet thing. Nah, the modem ain't here yet. It's supposed to be here tomorrow, allegedly, probably Tuesday. So hopefully, if the modem comes in tomorrow, then we should have some better speeds and some better internet. But I am utilizing the other cell phone to provide internet to the service because the modem over here is still not connected. It's still not working. So which also interfered with my ability to get the Q&As together because I have to create the audio file. I have to download the audio file to the computer. Then I have to upload the audio file to the show. And the download speed is like 17 and the upload speed is like 23. So it would take 4 hours to download it and 30 minutes to upload it. And then I had to start the show. So I bypassed it for this week, but I do have a lot of Q&As that I want to do for you guys because I strongly believe that you guys would benefit from some of the questions and actions that come across the show in all of the topics that we go through. And as we dive into other concepts and also some affiliate referrals, I want to make sure that we cross some of the basic aspects of the mentality of this podcast, which is, making it make sense in a linear, uniform fashion. And when we're coming across shit that I don't understand why it goes down this way, why we allow it to go down this way. We're going to be able to break it down, and we're going to be able to come through a more in-depth evaluation of these situations, and then we'll be able to come back and say, yep, he's right. That shit does not make sense. But as I wrap it up for the day, I want to tell you guys, thank you for coming. And ladies, I'm going to ask you this every night of the week until it happens. Ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to ask y'all to make it make sense. So ladies, please make it make sense. And as I said out of TikTok, I really appreciate the rest of you guys coming on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. You guys have shown us a lot of support. I really appreciate it. Long-standing fans, you guys have really been giving us the best parts of what they're not giving me they're not giving me the option to tell them that the shit sucks. Oh boy. Well, be that as it may, I ran through my mission on that one. Look at that. I done crossed some milestones I wasn't expecting to cross. All right. Well, like I was saying, I really appreciate you guys coming. You guys always show us a lot of support, and y'all help us make us what we are. So we are still doing a good job of expanding. We're at about 13,500 right now. So you guys are doing a good job of showing us support. I think we're like 13.6 or 13.7. I got to go back and double check, but I know we're well over 13.5 right now. So you guys have been showing us a lot of support, and I really appreciate that. We are trying to map it together to figure out when we're going to start traveling to visit some of the cities and states and countries that have shown us a lot of support. So just keep watching. Make sure that you share our content with some of your friends and family members that can also watch the podcast with you. And if they have questions and comments that they have based off of their observations of the show, they can share it. You can share it for them. Either way it goes, it gives us more conversations to have, discussions to have, because values and beliefs are specific to the individual. There's no right or wrong answer. There's no good or bad. It's just if it is good for you or if it is bad for you. So, I do not knock down anybody's beliefs. I just make it make sense. If it doesn't make sense, if the situation is only beneficial if you're in the situation, and if you're not in the situation, then it's not beneficial. Then I got to figure out why. Why is it only good if you're involved in it, and then it's not good if you're not involved in it? Why is it okay if you do it, but it's not okay if you don't do it? But as long as the situation comes out and they have a difference of opinion and philosophize on situations where, good or bad or plus or minus or or gender inequalities, or like the interesting discussion of wage gaps. Like we've had women come and tell us that there's still a wage gap. And I've talked to you guys on the show plenty of times where there isn't really a wage gap. There's just a poor choice and employment gap where women are choosing jobs that pay less and they're choosing them. They're not just being denied jobs that pay less, that pay more. They're just refusing to take those jobs because those jobs are too hard. And we talk about a lot of different things, and we try to touch base on some of our politics and some of our sports, but community guidelines are a little bit sensitive, and the last couple of times we touched base on politics, the community guidelines got really pissy with us, and viewership went left. So we got to try to steer and re-steer the podcast in and out of sensitive topics to make sure that we don't end up on the dark zone of the YouTube platform. But as we progress and we start getting a larger viewership, it's not going to really matter how well we push an issue, because if we're looking at a few 100,000 or a few million people that are watching us, then the algorithm is going to be directed towards us regardless, because the algorithm is non-biased. It is just based off of a series of numbers, and if your numbers are higher, you get more attention, which is again not encouraging for startups, because if the algorithm is only tuned to provide more traffic to the higher podcast, then how do you get the lower podcast to become higher podcasts? You have to strike oil. You have to hit 100,000 views on a video while the larger podcasts are not streaming, so that you can get up there. And then we have certain larger podcasts that's joined recently that's made it harder for smaller podcasts to come up, because football season, wrestling, the Olympics, other sports that are happening during certain times of the day, certain times of the night. And then you also have other 4 million, 10 million podcast fan bases that are competing against the less than 20,000 subscribers. And the less than 20,000 subscribers have to get in where they fit in. So they're less likely to succeed because they don't have a very big following. They're less likely to succeed because the podcast doesn't have a lot of views, which means that in order for you to really succeed, you would have to collaborate. A few dozen smaller podcasts would have to collaborate in some way, shape, or form, where they're sharing their fans across a number of platforms at the same time in order for them to make it big. See what I'm saying? So with that being said, you have to find a way to then broadcast the fact that you're putting other podcasts on. You would have to share their fans with your fans. You would have to share your fans with their fans, and this, that, and the third. But if you're building up each other from a small podcast to a big podcast, then small people will start making it. But it really does take you connecting with them to get 100,000 views, so that they can turn around and try to, build themselves up and connect back with you later on. So I see myself trying to do some interviews down the line, but as a small podcast, I don't have the popularity as a micro influencer to be able to encourage that many people to come to the show. So as I build up my popularity, we're going to be trying to see if we can get more people to come to the show for various reasons, and try to see if we can make some fascinating thumbnails that will let people know that we have good people coming to the show, which will aid us in our ability to have more people watch our show. And that will get us in another direction. So I told y'all we got a lot of stuff coming soon, sooner rather than later, but it's a progress waiting to happen. But stay tuned, because you come here, you learn something every day. We have enlightening insight on a regular basis, as well as conceptual knowledge, how-tos, do-it-yourselves, and why haven't you done it yourself. So all of these things, including relationship advice that we have going across the platform, as well as showing love to all of the cities and states that have shown us love over the months, because we're creeping right into the first full year of being on a podcast. So that's something that, milestone. And as we start purging some of the older videos and working our way into having more effective video quality, we want to make sure that you guys are really enjoying what you're getting. So we love feedback, we love insight, and whatever information that you guys have, we can typically turn a show into it, or I can do some research for you, and then I can provide you some information based on that in the comment section or in the community tabs for the membership. So with that being said, I'm gonna see you guys tomorrow. Thank you for coming to This and That, where I'm your host Xander, and we talk about this, that, and everything in between. So